What foods are not potentially hazardous? So if you're looking to create a cottage food business, which is a home-based food business, every state does have specifics as to what they allow and what they don't. But I'm going to give you a rundown of non-potentially hazardous food items, which are generally accepted across the board in most states. This will give you a good understanding of what is actually considered a non-potentially hazardous food. And the second video I'm going to make is I'm going to tell you what are potentially hazardous foods. So those you can also be aware of as well. So this is YouTube's brand new home-based food entrepreneur channel, Cottage Foods Laws. I am Damian Roberti. I am a food entrepreneur and have been for almost 14 years now. I've been in the food industry probably pretty much 32, 33 years now. And I know a lot of what I'm about to tell you because I've actually done it myself, and I own and operate a commercial kitchen that I operate from my own home and have been on Amazon for over 10 years and sold over $1.2 million in snacks, candies, and baked goods. And my wife and I operate that business as well. We've had that one in particular for about 11 years. So I know a little bit about what I'm about to tell you because I do it every single day. Let's dive right into it. Non-potentially hazardous foods are those that actually do not require refrigeration to prevent growth of harmful bacteria. Now, with that being said, these foods typically actually have a low moisture content, as it's known, a high acidity, or a combination of factors that inhibit the growth of pathogens. Now, here's a list of commonly potentially hazardous foods that you can actually know that are non-potentially hazardous. Sorry about that. And these are items that are pretty much across the board allowed in almost every single state with a few little variations here and there. Number one, baked goods. Yes, you could do breads, rolls, biscuits, cakes, cookies, brownies, muffins, and pastries. Now, with that being said though, cakes have to be without cream or some type of custard filling because again, that cream and custard would have to be refrigerated, therefore creating a potentially hazardous food product that just can't sit on a shelf or on your kitchen counter until you sell it because bacteria could develop, right? Okay, next up is candies and confections. Now, hard candies, fudge, caramels, chocolate, cotton candy, and taffy. Those are items that would normally be considered not potentially hazardous because it doesn't carry any potential for bacteria and such. Jams, jellies, and preserves. Now, this one's a little unique though. Fruit jams, fruit jellies, preserves with high sugar content. Because typically high sugar content actually inhibits the inability for bacteria to grow and develop. Next one is dry goods. Now this would be like dry herbs, spices, seasoning mixes, tea blends, and coffee beans. Now, coffee beans, by the way, being unbrewed. You can't necessarily bottle coffee at your house and sell it like they have frappuccinos ready to made at Starbucks. That's something you cannot do in a home-based kitchen. You'd actually need a commercial setting for that. But many states actually allow you to sell the coffee beans, though. Next up is snacks. Things like popcorn, granola, pretzels, nuts that are roasted in season, and dry cereal. See, these items, again, when you think about it, it doesn't need any time or temperature sensitivity. It doesn't have to be refrigerated or frozen to inhibit the ability for bacteria. Now, a few other items that actually are pretty familiar across the board in most states as well. Things like honey, fruit leathers, vinegars with flavored vinegars, dry pastas, dried fruits, and even rice cake, believe it or not. Those, again, are potentially not hazardous because, again, it inhibits the ability for growth of bacteria. Now, let me explain a little bit more about this particular thing about potentially hazardous. So what are the conditions for what's known as NPHFs? So water activity. Foods which actually with a low water activity of about less than 0.85 are generally non-potentially hazardous. Now, pH levels also have and can contribute to the potential for bacterial growth. Now, foods with a pH below 4.6 are acidic enough to actually inhibit bacterial growth. And that is something that you can find like with pickles or relishes or sauerkrauts and things. But again, the pH levels have to be below 4.6. Now, some examples of, let's say, some potentially hazardous food items. Now, these are not items that you, for the most part, you're not allowed to make in almost every state. Some states have some variations of this, but they have a different type of classification and a different type of permit or license. Particularly meats, raw or cooked. So in general, protein. So you can't necessarily open a restaurant and start selling some type of chicken or beef with the rice or pasta dishes. These are things that are considered more of a commercial kitchen, a food truck, a restaurant, cafe. Now, dairy products like milk, cheese, and yogurt. I believe there's actually a couple states in the Midwest that allow this, but again, there's a certain type of regulation and inspection. But again, when you think about it, right, milk, cheese, and yogurt, that all has to be refrigerated. And if it's not controlled or handled properly, people can get sick if it gets to a certain temperature, okay? Now, next up is eggs, raw or cooked. Again, this is another protein that in particular under cottage food laws, they're not necessarily allowed to be sold from your home. Now, again, there are a couple exceptions. There are a couple states that allow you to sell eggs but again, that falls under a different permitting licensing, not necessarily cottage food. Cooked vegetables, soups, stews. Think about that. Again, you're cooking cooked vegetables. Once they're cooked, they have to be within a certain time frame, or they have to be put in the refrigerator before they get eaten, right? So again, that's an item that would be potentially hazardous because it has the potential to get people sick. Now, cooked grains like rice and pasta, custards, cream-filled pastries, foods requiring refrigeration or temperature control, of course. So think about those as well. Like we mentioned before, creams and custards, yeah, those are things you can't just leave out on the counter. You can't put out on a farmer's market table and leave it there all day. It can get people sick. Cooked grains, again, rice and pasta, you can't necessarily let that sit for a long period of time without it being refrigerated or temperature controlled. So if you're asking yourself that question, what foods are not potentially hazardous? Well, there's a rundown of actually potentially hazardous and not potentially hazardous. I'm going to do another video specifically about a list that's a little bit longer of items that you cannot make from home, because it's always good to know what you can and can't make. Now, of course, again, every state has small variations. That's why you're going to subscribe to our channel here. We've got every state for you and a rundown of what you can and can't make, and also additional marketing tools. We're going to have some great videos on packaging, labeling, and so much more. So if you're brand new to the channel, we just launched it recently. Definitely hit the subscribe button. I've got multiple food entrepreneur channels here. We have hundreds of thousands, actually, subscribers throughout all of our channels. You might find some of our other channels interesting too. So check out those links down below. You got questions about your cottage food law? Let us know in the description section. We definitely appreciate that in the comments area as well. We like to build out some new videos. If you've got some questions, we like to do also frequently asked question videos. So let us know. I'll see you on our next video.